are we doing? Unfortunately, looks like I have the other stream that doesn't want to start correctly, so I created another one. Still learning the stream stuff. Okay, so hopefully you're doing fine. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I haven't done for a few weeks any live streams, so hopefully today we can catch up and chat and see how you're doing and talk about what we have on our minds right now as software developers. And at the same time, I decided to go with the option of talking about software testing. So I wanted to see how people feel about writing tests, share different situations like we ran into with unit tests, TDD, and whatnot, other forms of unit testing and software testing that there might be. So I want to make sure that I don't have people waiting on the other one. So I will go and double check the other chat and yeah, sorry, can you join second one? Yeah. So it looks like people are in the other chat room. So hi, how are you? Let me know how you're doing. Jesus Lozano, hi, how are you? Where are you from? Hi, Bashal. Hi, I see that you kind of got my cryptic message, join the other room. Okay, so hopefully your guys doing well. Jesus, which part of Mexico? Okay. Okay, so how are you guys, what is your relationship with software testing? Do you like it? You don't like it? Guadalajara, I heard is a really beautiful area there. Okay, so I'll cancel. Yeah, how do I cancel the other one? Manage. Okay, so this one. How do I? Yeah, I will delete the other one. Delete forever. Okay, so now that we are back here, I should probably give you a little bit of feedback, like why did I pick up today's topic to be unit testing, software testing, and so on. So, Bashal, no suelo hacer test porque no sé hacerlo. Necesito aprender. ¿Y estás desarrollando application software? So Bashal is saying that doesn't know how to write tests and needs to learn it. And that's how we kind of learn, right? A lot of us human beings, there are a lot of things that we don't know, and it's up to us to learn it. And my relationship, to answer kind of the same question that I asked you, what is your relationship with testing? It's kind of a double sword edge. Sometimes I really, really enjoy it, and sometimes I kind of get frustrated by it, but that's just being honest. But nonetheless, with the situations when I'm frustrated with it, doesn't take away from the benefits of unit tests. They are different tests, right? There are unit tests, there are integration tests, end-to-end testing, so multiple level of tests. So regardless of what tests we're talking about, the software testing, all of them have their major benefits on for us as software developers, and making sure that our software is solid and it's, let's say, it's secure for future changes and modifications. Keyo Hamid, hello from Brazil. Hi, welcome. Glad to see you here. Okay, so when I studied at university learning to program, I never, like our teachers or like 3 years of university, a computer science degree, we never actually talked about writing unit tests or anything. The only testing that we were doing, it was actually testing like as user testing, right? You run your program, your software application, you're solving an algorithm or something like that, and then you run it and you see if the result is what you expected or not, right? Actually never wrote or knew about tests, software tests, until I started to work. And when I started to work at that time, I was introduced to testing, and it took a little bit of time to wrap my head around it. It was a little bit of a learning curve, but when I finally kind of got it, I was amazed at how amazing it is, because as the application, the software that we were developing was growing bigger and bigger, having the tests that were securing the software that was written before, and now that we are changing stuff, it was helping us make sure that whatever we were writing, we were not breaking existing code. So it was helping us be more, let's say, sleep better at night, if that makes sense. But yeah, so how is your like experience with unit tests, like how, or software tests? How do you feel about it? Have you experienced it? You like it, dislike it? I'm just curious to see how you feel about it. Flower, hi, how are you? Okay, so I will kind of continue with the story about testing. When I started to work, Jesus, I don't know a lot of testing neither. Are you studying right now software engineering, or are you actually working? And as a software developer, you don't have to write tests, because there are actually positions like that some companies will have people just develop the software. Their sole responsibility is to write the software. They don't have to write tests. And they will have people in the organization who are responsible to write the tests for the software. And in which order that happens, it's completely up to the company. But there are moments when the software tests are written before the implementation, and the tests are given to the software engineers, and they have to develop that based on the test. Or it can be the other way around. It's completely up to the organization. Bashal, it's frustrating doing something, believing it's all right, and then it doesn't work. Exactly. Yeah. And making sure that you know that at some point it worked, and you tweaked just a little thing, and you just quickly run the unit tests, all the test suites that you have, and you will see that, oh, that broke something. And then it's like, oh, it should not break that. Like, why did you break it? Kind of helps you realize what is dependent on what are the correlations between different parts of the software and everything what's done there. It's amazing. So going back to roles, right? Some companies will have developers who only write software. They will have developers who are only writing tests, and there are developers who are doing both. They do software engineering and developing. So developing the test as well. So from my experience, my job like that I was doing both. I was doing software engineering, and I was also responsible for writing the test for the code that I've written. And it wasn't just me like that. It was our entire organization was like that the developers were responsible for writing the test. And we also had QA team that QA was testing the application from a different point, from usability, from regression, and so many other aspects. But also they had automated tests that software engineers didn't have to do anything with that. Flower, I'm interested in software engineering, trying to get info on into the nature of work. Love your channel. Thank you. Welcome to the channel, and feel free to suggest and ask any questions you have. I'll be happy to answer. And yeah, hopefully I can bring some light into the uncertainty, because it's definitely software engineering can seem a lot of I don't know, what word do I want to say? It might be scary, but in reality, it's not. Software engineering is pretty simple when you take something and just break it down to the smaller pieces. And that kind of ties to our test topic today, is that how do you test? Well, basically, a unit test is testing a specific part of the application, right? A specific functionality. So if you have, let's say, a user story that you have to implement, let's say, let's take a random, okay, if we were to, let's say, to develop a tic-tac-toe game, let's say that. So first, maybe you'll have a user story that will draw the board. Then you will have a user story that will say, when you click here, you see the cross, or when you click next time, it will be a circle. So every single thing that you do, it's practically a user story. So every time that you implement a feature, you also should have something that tests the specific functionality and what the behavior should be. So when you write something, initially, when you get a project, it might seem a big thing and really hard and really complex and really scary. Honestly, even today, after so many years of software engineering, every time I get a project, the first thing that I feel is like, oh my God, can I do this? It's so hard, so scary. I haven't done this. But then I decided to take kind of not decide, but I forced myself to take a deep breath and relax and say, okay, so if I were to break this down into more manageable pieces, how would I do that? And then I start to break it down into small bite pieces and do one at a time. And then once I accomplished one, I was like, oh, that was not that hard. I can do that one. Let's move on to the next one. And you do that step by step, and you get that, like in a blink of an eye, that suddenly your software is working, your implementation is working, your project is complete. And as you go with every step in the engineering, you should write the test. Also, there's this concept of TDD. Before you write your software, your implementation, either it's a class, either it's a function, whatever you try to do, a method, interface, whatever you're doing, the TDD is that you first write a test, and it should first fail because you don't have the software to support that test to pass. So your next step is to write the minimum necessary code in your application for the test to pass. So once the test passes, it has a green, right? Green status is signifying or representing that the test passed. The next step, what you have to do is refactor your code in such a way that it continues to behave and solve what you're trying to solve, while the test is still staying green because it was because it's there to support that whatever you were testing for is still there. Okay, so how many years did it take for you to get to the level you are now? Well, I worked for, let's say, 8 years in software engineering. So, but it didn't take that long to get to the level that you need. As soon as you start working on something, you start to get better and better every day at what you do. And you kind of, from the experience and from the mistakes you get, you start to be more wise, more, what's the word? More experienced. You kind of know what works and what doesn't work, what best approach to go. So it's basically, but I don't, to the level where I am, it's not the level where you kind of stop. I'm still, I believe that I'm still at the beginning of the road, because there's so much more that I want to do, want to learn, and so much more I want to accomplish. So there are different people, different experiences. So my suggestion and recommendation is that don't compare yourself with anybody. Like, this person took them 6 months to get here, or this person it took them a year to get here, because their experiences are different. So it might take people different time, given what kind of experience they had, what kind of exposure that had, what kind of a background. So hopefully that answers your question. But depending on which field you want to get into, it's in software engineering, you can start feel more comfortable and more able to solve problems independently without relying on somebody kind of pair programming with you or shadowing your work or something like that. It could be probably, I would say, 6 months, a year, or something like that. But it depends on again, your level of confidence and so on. What books will you suggest for a beginner to learn programming languages? There are a lot of great books on software engineering. However, I see it. I love books. Don't get me wrong. It's like they are my best friends many times. But learning to program from books, it's kind of a really hard task, because programming, it's a field where you learn by doing. So if you want to have a book and you read it and right away you apply it into practice, then there are many, many different books that I would recommend. Probably for a beginner in software engineering, definitely any of the head first books. Like, I would recommend, let's say, if you want to learn, let's say, Android development or iOS development, if you want to get into mobile development or something like that, mobile app application, then you pick up the, let's say, design first or head first iOS development or something like that. If you want to get into Java, let's say, to develop in the Java application, Java programming language, you use head first. The reason why I recommend head first is really, like, programming and all the documentation and everything that exists online. It's great, but it's really, really dry and scientific a lot of times. And even I, with experience, or other people with experience, also find it kind of sometimes hard to digest, and sometimes the documentation is not the best. And these head first books, they are great because they deliver the information in such a manageable way for people to learn and understand, and also keep you engaged. Your brain is more happy, let's say, that is more able to absorb the information that way. But also, I would recommend there are open courses that can kind of guide you in the path for learning to program. And I recently discovered, like recently, that's probably 3-4 months ago, I discovered this App Academy Open platform, where they basically, it's a boot camp, and whatever they are teaching, their curriculum in the boot camp, in the in-person boot camp, they also open that curriculum for anybody to learn it. Anybody can learn it on their own timing, their own pace, and so on. So App Academy Open, it's a free platform with an amazing curriculum. So if you want to start there, that's a recommendation. But to answer your question, books, probably I'll recommend head first, whatever area you want to do. Do you want web development? Then pick up JavaScript, C#, CSS, HTML. If you want C#, like, you have to determine which area you want to go. And also on the algorithms, because algorithms and in programming are important. I would definitely recommend grokking algorithms. for my Google interview. Actually, I didn't had time to prep. Like from the moment I knew that I will have an interview with Google in person until the interview, it was practically a week. And during that time, I was super swamped at work and I didn't have time to prepare at all. So what I did in the few hours at night that I had, I would pick up this grokking algorithm book. I think actually I have it here. Yes, that's the book. Sorry for the noise. This is the book. This is the only book I use to prepare for my Google interview. It's not that thick. It's really kind of thin, and it's, again, it's really great. Why I like it is because it has, you can see, if my camera will focus, it has visual representation, breaks down the information in a really, really manageable chunk of pieces. Chunk of pieces. I definitely need to work on my English, but I really like it, and maybe it's a bit pricey, right? It's a $40 book, 44 probably. But also, if you don't have the money to buy it, like say to have the physical book, which I really recommend it. The Manning Publishing, I think it's camera focus. And it doesn't want to focus. Manning, let me type. I'll Manning Publishing book platform. They actually have this book available on their platform. So if you cannot purchase the physical book, definitely you can get the free ebook. I think actually it says here, actually can get the free ebook as well. Yeah, doesn't focus the camera. But yeah, definitely those I recommend to have on your arsenal. And to finish my earlier thought is that this was the only book that I used to prepare for my Google interview. And from everything, like from all 5 interviews, one was on, like it required a 2D matrix to know that a 2D array, which is a matrix, and everything else were kind of algorithms, and all of the other questions and the interviews that I had, this book actually prepared me really, really well. Just I read it probably in 7 hours, and that was my only prep. So, Bashal, I'm really interested. What did you retract there? What truth is that is the industry no commit passes without unit test? What truth is that in the industry no commit passes without unit test? I am not sure I understand. What truth is that? Okay, so please clarify that. I'm sorry, I don't understand what is the question actually. So back to the topic of testing. Si tu inglés es muy malo, puedes escribir en español y voy a tratar a entenderlo entonces. So unit tests, going back to unit tests and tests at all. What I was saying, that there are small kind of tests, like unit tests, that are basically, their purpose is to test a specific area, a specific functionality of your code. And the structure of a unit test might be that first you set up the test, and we have kind of 3 A's. First A is that you are doing an assignment. Second, you're doing an action, and third, you're assessing. So basically, you are setting up the data in such a way that, okay, this is my setup. If I do something to that data, that's what is my expected output or outcome. And you are verifying if what you expect is exactly what you got back from your code. So that's the unit test. You are testing small pieces specific for the code that you've written in your software. Unit test is a little bit more complex. It's bigger. You are testing multiple areas. Like let's say it will include multiple unit tests. Let's say it's more like A to Z. It can be maybe A to B or A to C, not necessarily the A to end, but it's definitely more in the integration testing. It involves more different aspects of the code that is being tested. And end-to-end testing, it might be not necessarily that is written in the application, is not necessarily something that you actually committing or checking in with your code. It's something that is most likely could be done by a QA or developer itself, or actually could be also done by the user, the customer that is testing everything end to end and so on. So those are kind of the tests that I wanted to mention. Me refería si es cierto que en el trabajo ningún commit pasa sin hacer test primero. So you're saying that at work, there is like, you cannot commit anything without doing a test. So let me clarify a few things. Like, you can commit, like nobody stops you from committing or checking in. So if you're committing, I assume you're using Git. If you're checking in, you're using TFS, VSTS, or DevOps, Azure, right? You can definitely check in or commit. Nobody stops you from doing that. It's not recommended. I'll tell you why. Because if you do that, you will commit your code, and if you didn't run the task before that, at that time, you'll run the risk that you have broken something that already exists. And since you committed, everybody might have, and if you actually pushed the code, everybody then might get that code that, as a result, breaks the application for everybody. It's not only for you that is broken, it's broken for everybody. So the best practice is basically you do your code, run the test, make sure that nothing was broken by the code that you introduced. And if everything is okay, then you check it in or commit your code. That way, you are ensuring that whatever you've done in the code didn't break the existing code. That taking a part of existing functionality, so make sure that you didn't break anything else, that put aside, you also have to write tests for the code that you just developed, the code that you just changed. So if it's something new and you didn't had any code, like any unit tests before, then you definitely create all the tests that you have, right? And you write the tests. The recommendation there is that to commit your software changes in the application alongside with your tests. That's basically what you usually do when you do a code review request. You should pass like requests for both your code and your tests. But again, there's nothing that stops you from checking in just the software part implementation. Let's say your C# code or Java code or your JavaScript code. Nothing stops you from committing without your unit test. It's kind of a best practice that you should best do them both at the same time. So hopefully that answers your question. So one, it's better to not commit without running the test first to make sure that nothing breaks. And second, whatever you are writing code for, if you're fixing a bug or you're writing green code, which you're developing something new, in that case, you should definitely have not only make sure that you run the existing code, like unit test code, but also that you are actually developing the test for the code you just added. Ankit Pagar, hi Alina Noor. Do you have a LinkedIn? Yes, I do have a LinkedIn. You can find me at Anna Arsentyeva, and yeah, you can find me there. I do have a LinkedIn. And by the way, welcome. I'm glad to see you here. What questions do you have? What do you want to hear? I'm looking. Whoa, my camera is going crazy. I'm looking to chat here, and let's talk. And how you doing? Let me know. Like, what do you want to talk about? What do you like about software engineering, or what frustrates you, or like anything, right? And specific, maybe we can keep it to the topic. And if you don't want to keep it to the topic, it's fine by me. Until you kind of, I see you typing or something like that, I'll tell you this, that there might be times that the frustrating part, like I'll share you the frustrating part with unit testing. My frustrating part, it was that sometimes I will write, maybe I'll change one line of code, fix the bug or something like that. It's only one line of code. And you might need to write tests, set up the test and the class and everything. And it might take so much work to write that unit test for just one line of code. And might be frustrating, but at the end of the day, in the future, like because you invested now, in the future, you will benefit from it, because that will be, let's say, under a safety net, that now it's secure. Now we have a test that will make sure that nothing breaks it in the future. Okay, Alina, Nur, and how are you doing with the current situation? Any tips for students in finding internship? That's a good question. Actually, I don't know how good tips they are, but if you have a network, try to reach out to your network. Also, I recently found a few, like just scrolling through LinkedIn, I saw a lot of companies are offering tips there on how to find internship for students, like during this time. It's a really crazy time for a lot of people. And I think I saw a particular company who actually was looking for apprenticeship, internship. Just look, I saw it a few days ago, and right now I cannot find it. I will do this, like I will check it out and I will post it in the comments in the video once I find it. But I will try to find the company that actually is looking for that. But luckily, a lot of companies now are trying to do internship, remote internship, and that's kind of hard for interns. When I meant, like, I mentored a couple of years, and it was during summer, and usually I had one or two interns. And sometimes during the week I will work from home, and I found that being challenging, like to work remote and have interns. It was so much easier to do that in person, but the situation is that, well, in person it's kind of hard right now, so we have to do our best what we can. So we have to be positive and try to find the best solution in the situation. So I'm not sure what else I can say. It's just maybe you post on your LinkedIn saying your situation. Here's where I am. I'm looking for an internship, and ask for somebody to assist and help with that. Other than that, I'm not nothing comes off the top of my head right now, so I'll try to think about something and probably post it later in the comments. Anket Pergar, how do you start with new technology topics, i.e. web technology, 4G, 5G? Like basically, if I understand that your question correctly, let's say you are developing, and right now, let's say Java, right? And you're wondering how to switch to web development. Well, I'll tell you what I am doing. I've done a desktop application for many, many years now. And suddenly I decided to switch and learn web development. And that's what I'm doing right now. So there are different ways of doing. And I posted probably a video last week or 2 weeks ago about different ways of why should you go to a bootcamp or not, right? So there are different ways of learning. You have at your disposal, you can learn by yourself. There are so many resources now online that are free and available. If you don't want to use the online free resources, you are completely allowed. You can do whatever you want. You can go and learn. You pick, like, buy a course and learn based on the course. There are different courses: Coursera, Udemy, edX, LinkedIn Learning, which I recommend. I use it a lot. And they are, like, if you don't like those options of kind of learning by yourself, then you can go to classes. There are different classes that might be for a specific amount of time. Let's say if it's maybe 3 months and it's two times a week in the evenings or something like that. If you already experienced like in software engineering, you can program and you just want to switch to a different kind of industry or different niche in program development or in programming, then you can do that. You can go to classes in the evening, or it can be weekends. Another option, it can be that you go with a bootcamp route. That's what I'm doing right now. Basically, I'm doing that because of the structure, about the time, and everything else. Like there are many other reasons. And also, you can, like there are the option of university, because you might want to get a master degree and also will have kind of a flavor in web development or something like that. But there are multiple routes that you can go. It's completely up to you which one do you like. Like I chose to go to a boot camp, but that works for me. That might not work for you for different reasons. So you definitely have to look into what works for you, for your situation. You know best how you learn. You know best what will be the best result in the long term. So, but how do you start with that? It's basically, if you want to learn that by yourself, again, I mentioned that already. I'll recommend App Academy Open platform, which they have their curriculum for JavaScript. They're open. Let me check what they have actually there. App Academy Open. So it's actually open.appacademy.io, and you have to log in. I will check what do they actually have there. Last time I checked, while this is loading, I had the full curriculum for JavaScript there. So it's called Full Stack Online, and it has Intro to Programming, has Full Stack Online Intro to Programming, Software Engineering Foundation. They have a course on Ruby, they have a course on SQL, they have a course on Rails, JavaScript, React, Full Stack Project, Burn Stack Curriculum, Full Stack Online Job Search, Docker Curriculum, GraphQL Curriculum, Data Structures and Algorithms. So they have all of that open, and it's basically exactly the same curriculum that they do with their bootcamp in person. So it's not the same curriculum, the bootcamp that the curriculum that I'm doing right now. The online curriculum is different, to my understanding. So hopefully that answered the question. Bashel. Foi difícil aprender a hacer unit test. If it was difficult for me to do unit test, yes, it was difficult for me to kind of wrap my head around it. It was hard for me to understand what do you want to do in the assigned area, what to do in the the hardest part for me, it was what do I do in the assigned area, because it felt to me that I'm kind of cheating many times. So after a while, I was really lucky to have really good mentors, like from the early on when I started to work at my previous company. I was paired with really, 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 really awesome, strong software engineers, and I learned so much from them. And actually, probably the majority of what I can do today is due to the fact that I was paired with them and I learned so much from them. So I will be forever grateful for them. And now if I find myself in a situation where I can teach somebody, I try to do the same, because it had such a big benefit for me to have such amazing mentors, let's say. Another part that for me it was really hard is that I was asked to kind of try to do TDD from start, and TDD a lot of times it's more complicated. It's harder to wrap your head around it. And TDD stands for task-driven development. So you write your task first, then you develop, and then you refactor, right? So you kind of, the cycle there is you are refactoring. TDD is basically you have this kind of 3 colors or 3 stages. Red is like the first task you're writing, it's failing because you don't have actually software to support what you just wrote in the test. Green, you write the code to support the test, make it pass, so you have it green. And then you have it a blue color, kind of the refactor. It's basically you continue to refactor your code and get it to a point where you're happy with the results and you can check it in. So it was really hard for me to learn testing TDD the most. The reason was that I was learning to write tests in a software application that was really mature and really complex. So for me, it was really hard to kind of extract exactly what do I need to test. I was more writing integration tests versus, I want to sneeze, my apologies. Sorry. Camera. So for me, I was more writing integration tests at the beginning versus unit tests. So it took me a while to wrap my head around what's the difference between integration tests and unit tests. Okay. Silma Hos Azvedo, how to make a team more productive? That's a great question. I think what made our team more productive, it will feel counterproductive to have some team building exercises to make sure that the team has each other's back. And the best way to get a team work together is make sure that the team can feel safe, that they can speak up. They are not afraid to make mistakes. They are not afraid to say something, let's say stupid, even though there's not such a thing as stupid things. But vulnerability, it's one secret weapon that makes a lot of different relationships work best. So I would say that make sure that people feel that they can be safe, that they won't be judged by making a mistake, or they are not at risk saying, oh, I don't know how to do this. I need to research this or something like that. Sorry, something is happening. I want to sneeze all the time. Get a cup of water. So hopefully that makes sense, but that's what helps to make teams more productive. I don't think there's one secret sauce. There are a lot of many things that go into that. Bashel, trabajaste en Europa cuando migraste, lo hiciste con un contrato antes de? So the question is, if I worked before I moved here from Europe, if I worked in Europe, and if I had the contract before I moved. So I worked, like I had an internship in Europe, but that was not something that I would say it was something big or anything like that. It was an internship that was required to graduate from a computer science degree. But I had no contract whatsoever or anything like that before I moved here. It happened that my husband won a green card lottery. And as a result, we moved here without any contracts or work or anything like that. And when I got here, it was really hard for me to initially to find a job in software engineering. I was struggling a lot with my communication. I knew basic English, like where I'm from, how old I am, stuff like that, my favorite color, something like that. But I was not skilled enough to pass a technical interview. Like if I will go to a technical interview. I remember early on I had interviews with Facebook. Actually, I was reorganizing my office, and I was throwing away different paper and actually found my Facebook interview that I had with instructions how to get there and how to prepare. So long story short, I remember that I went to the interview, and even though I was understanding maybe the question, most of the time I was not understanding because of the language. But when I was understanding what was being asked, I was not able to explain that. So long story short, no, I didn't had the contract, and it was challenging for me to find a job in software engineering. And I had to work on like how to get there, like what do I need to do to learn and be able to pass a technical interview. Hispag Gamers Mexico. Hola, hola, ¿cómo estás? Orlando Angelo Broach, I think. Hi, all from Chile. How are things in Chile? Welcome, nice to see you here. Zima was Avedo. Again, I apologize if I pronounce things really bad. I need to work on my pronunciation. Translating the bachelor question, was it difficult to adapt to write unit test? Thank you. It was, I think I answered that question. It was a little bit challenging for me, but there were different reasons why it was challenging for me. As I already mentioned, it was challenging because of the software complexity. Oh man, she speaks Spanish. Haha. I actually, yes, on that topic, I speak a couple of languages because since I was a kid, I wanted to be a translator or an interpreter. So funny fact, it was that I was speaking Spanish much, much, much better than I speak right now because I haven't practiced it so much in the many years. But before I moved to United States, Spanish was a language that it was really easy for me to speak in, read, and all that stuff. English was really kind of, as I mentioned, I could speak a few words, how old I am, where I'm from, and stuff like that. And now it's kind of almost the opposite. I start to forget Spanish. So make sure that you're testing and making me practice Spanish. That way I don't forget it. Alda Garcia. Have you had any struggle as a female software engineer? Yes. And a lot of times it also depends on us and our perspective, right? And it depends on from which side you look at it. It was more a struggle internally for me, especially after I became a parent. It was a struggle for me to be away from my child. And it was a lot, like, it was an adjustment that I had to do. For me, when I was at work, I was feeling guilty that I'm not with my child. And when I was at home with my child, I was guilty and feeling a certain void that I'm not working, I'm not programming, I'm not doing what I like. So it was something that I needed to adjust, and it took a while to get into that. Disculpe, saludos. Saludos, ¿de dónde me estás saludando? But other than that, I was lucky enough with the company that I worked on. I never was overlooked on a promotion or on a project or anything like that, saying that, oh, because she's a she won't get that or something like that. It was great in that respect because we at work were really evaluated on what's your work ethic, what you're capable of doing, what you're doing, and all of that stuff. And actually, there are a lot of companies like that, but unfortunately, you will find situations where some companies are not like that, and maybe it's not the entire company, but it might be one person that will make you like that, feel like that. I tend to go to different technical meetups to conferences and so on. And once, after one meetup, I was at the bus stop going back home after the meetup, and a person who was in the same meetup ended up being in the same bus, and we started to talk on the way home. And he actually, something that he said kind of got me thinking, let's say that. His opinion was that females should not be software engineers, they should stay at home with families and so on. So there are people who have different ideas, different views in life and so on. But what I want to say is that even if there are people like that, that doesn't stop me. Actually, that probably something that motivates me more. And since I was a child, I didn't like to do stuff because I was a girl, or not to do stuff because I was a girl. Like, I'll have situations like my mom's like, go and do that because your brother is a boy and you're a girl, you have to do that. And I was like, no, like, I won't do that because I'm a girl. Or no, I won't stop that because I'm a girl, something like that. So since I was a child, I kind of was like that. But it's I would say it's a perspective in certain areas, and it also depends on us not to let that be in our way if somebody doesn't see the way it should be. Hopefully that answers the question. Bashal, ¿cuántos años tienes en desarrollo de software? The actual, like, so the question is how many years do I have in software engineering? Actual software engineering, active software engineering, it's 8 years. And if I actually count the time that I was at the university, we can add 4 there, so it's 12. Adiscopis, I'm in Seattle, Green Lake. Thanks for all your info. Oh, nice. We have a fellow Seattle area person here. I'm not really in Seattle. I'm more in suburbs, but yeah, good to see you here. Cool. Okay. Any questions? If you want us to continue, I'm happy to keep talking, answer questions. And if there are no other questions, we can. Alina Noor, did you study computer science at university? Yes, I did study computer science at university. And a lot of people have this idea that once you start at university, you know everything and you're set for life and you will be an amazing software engineer and don't have anything else to do or learn anything or something like that, which is not true. A lot of what I learned at university was kind of prepared me for the job, but what it actually was needed at the job, I actually learned it at the work. So hopefully that makes sense. Bashal, ¿alguna otra tecnología que se te hizo difícil aprender? Okay, so Bashal is asking if there's any other technology that it was hard for me to learn. So are you asking about a specific technology, programming language, or a specific concept in software engineering? And Alina, or hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Just we have a name the same in the country we're from, also spelled like that. Are you currently a software engineer or studying? Okay, so Bashal, por ejemplo, los unit tests, if it was something else that was hard for me to wrap my head around. Yes. For me, it was really hard to wrap my head around recursion. And we did learn recursion at university, to be honest. And funny enough is that I didn't understand recursion so well. And I ended up being the subject matter expert in an engine in our software that was, the entire engine was written based on the recursion. And it took me a while to wrap my head around it, but everybody kind of tried to stay away from it, and people even understood recursion and they kind of didn't like it. And me, I could not wrap my head around recursion. and I kind of end up being kind of an expert in that area. And probably I end up being an expert in that area because I was like, I didn't like the feeling that I don't get recursion and I won't be stopped by that. So I kind of in, insanely, let's say, or stubbornly, yes, that's the word, stubbornly decided to learn that. So yeah, kind of the recursion was a kind of hard topic for me. What else? What else? Mm-hmm. It was really hard for me when I was learning to kind of wrap my head around classes and stuff like that. But that was like 15 years ago, right? If not more. And that was in, I think it was in C++, I believe. And, but I kind of, what I wanted to say, what did I want to say? I kind of theoretically, I knew the syntax, I knew everything, but I was struggling with actually writing the code from scratch to solve something. I can look at the program and tell you what it's doing, but I was struggling with the fact of writing everything from scratch. And once I started to work, once I started to get immersed in the area, once I started to know what needs to be developed, that became so much clearer, so much like that was my aha moment when I actually understood what needs to be done, when I knew what is being done. But the examples that we were doing at school, at university, makes sense. And yes, I knew the syntax, but I was not able to kind of program, let's say, if that makes sense. Okay. Oh, the cloud. I haven't done anything with the cloud, honestly. And nothing attracts me to it yet. That might change in the future. Alina, I'm a CS student at university. Well, hopefully you are enjoying it. How many, which year are you? How many more you have to study? Aniscopis, can you give me, if you can get a chance of a course, the path to be a full stack developer, please? Gracias. So are you asking for a paid course, a free course? Like what kind of courses do you want? Because there are different levels I can recommend. Bachelor, ¿crees que aprendiste bien en la universidad los conceptos de diseño y arquitectura de software? No. So the question is, do you believe you learned well at university the concept of software design? So it's kind of the object-oriented design and object-oriented architecture and so stuff like that, I believe, to your question. And I learned the concepts, but they were not good or anything like that. And as I said, the concepts were there, that they helped me to get a job, but everything what was needed for my job I actually learned at work. And I got better at design with time, but I have so many more skills or many more levels that I want to get. So it's a work in progress for me. So it's a moving target for me that I get here. Okay, I can do this with design now, and I have a goal where I want to be next. So I still work on the design because I want to be not only able to design something, but I want to actually be a craftsman there in the software, in design and so on. So to answer again the question, at the university, it's just kind of introduction to the concept. It's not really, I don't think it helped me much. But maybe my memory's not that well. It was like, how many years ago? I studied at the university in 2007, so 13 years ago. Yeah, if my math works fine. Alina, I'm in the second year and 2 more years left. So can't wait to go out in the industry and learn in the workplace. Yeah, and I'm sure you will do amazingly. What I like about the way that is in the United States, so hopefully you work in the United States or somewhere else, I'm not sure where you are, but I like the fact that in the United States, like you learn something and you can do during the summer, you can do internship. That's amazing. I think if I had that the same in Europe, I would have been so much better, so much better than I am. But anyways, we only had internship on the final year when we needed to graduate. That was our internship, but that was it. So I really like the way it's done here in the United States. Ariskop is self-taught, Udemy, Coursera. So your question was on, did you ask about full stack development, please? So have you guys heard of Forest Knight? He's a YouTuber. He's really good. I actually like him, his style. But why I bring him up is that Forest Knight, he has a GitHub. Forest Knight. He has a GitHub. Let me find it, and I will be able to put it here. GitHub. He has an amazing GitHub with its open source CS, which he finds everything you need to learn on software engineering, computer science degree from open source platforms. And some of them are on Coursera, some of them are on Udemy and so on. So do they have something here on web development? I honestly don't see web development here. But web development, you can Open App Academy is really good. Their course, it's free, and their course is available. So I recommend that if you want. And also CS50, it's by Harvard. The teacher is amazing. So CS50, whatever you want, web technology, it has multiple levels, so it's really good. Okay, Lena, also Anna, do you think companies expect incoming students to know it all? No, it's not expected for companies to know it all. And trust me, you will learn so much when you're at the job. Like at the university, a lot of it is theory and you do a little bit of practice. And the practice that you're doing most time is not really well connected. And when you're at the job and you have a project and you work on that project, or an internship, you work on that internship, let's say 3 months or something like that, you have a project. And at the beginning, you're kind of struggling to understand everything what's needed. And it will be kind of slow, but as you go with it, then you will have such a kind of a huge learning curve. And then suddenly your productivity will go up, will skyrocket, because stuff will start to make sense. And no, there's not an expectation that the students have to know it all. The expectation is that the student is willing to open, that has this mindset of that I don't know that yet, but here's what I will do to know it. So basically, if you go to an interview and somebody asks you something and you don't know the answer, it's like, okay, I don't know this, but this is what I will do. I'll Google it, or I'll open the book, or I'm subscribed to, let's say, LinkedIn Learning, and I'll look at that course or something like that, right? So you definitely have to have that mindset that you don't give up on the first roadblock, and you have the grit to continue. Basho. Ok, es un alivio porque en mi universidad me siento como idiota cuando hablamos de esto. Hablando de que, okay, so Bashal said that he's kind of relieved that at university, it's about design, right? Design and architecture. Okay, so it's really, like as I already said, it's kind of hard to take stuff out of context and try to teach that. And that's why I see a university as something that kind of prepares you and gives you the concept or the foundation for a software engineering job, but that's not everything you need, and that's not necessarily what we will end up doing. And the majority of what you need at work, it will be learned at work. And design comes with experience, with time. You end up like, if I were to give an analogy, right? There are a lot of books, like there are design patterns that they're well known, and you cannot take a design pattern and copy it completely and put it in your code. That is not how it works. It's kind of, you have to be, let's say, a chef, right? You are cooking something and you apply kind of the same, let's say, the same ingredients, but you decide based off what you need, what will be your people you will be feeding your food, right? And you decide how much salt you add, how much tomato or how much pepper or something like that. It's basically, it's a recipe, and you are the chef who determines how to apply that best in your situation based on what are the constraints of the software you're writing, what are the constraints of time, what are constraints of how that will be used. Like, what is the input, what is the output, what are the expectations. There are so many aspects that go into design of a software application that it's kind of hard to teach that outside, but it's the purpose there is just to get you started on the topic, on the idea, to start thinking about it. Alina, you're in Canada. So I think in Canada, they also have internships, if I'm not mistaken. Rick and Marty, did the company you worked for hired anyone who didn't have a computer CS degree and no experience? Honestly, yes. And that was kind of a first, I believe. No. So the majority at our company, people worked for many years there. So it's rarely somebody left, and we rarely hired somebody. But long story short, I believe only one person had a musical art degree. Another one, he was in like electrical engineer, but electrical engineers kind of also engineers, right? But did they hire somebody without a computer science degree and no prior experience? Yes, we actually have one person that we hired, like, it was 2 years ago when I went on maternity leave. Two new developers were hired. So one of them, Dean, had a computer science degree, had no experience. He actually was a graduate from a boot camp. So we hired him from a boot camp, and we hired two people at the same time. Honestly, I'll tell you about a person with a degree and a person with a boot camp. We cannot tell a difference. It was really good. Enjoy it, bro. Are you a Canadian? No, I'm not Canadian. Do I sound Canadian? I'm from Eastern Europe, a small country called Moldova. Alina Nur, Forest Night is amazing. Yes, I really like his content, and hopefully sometime I can get closer to being better, closer to being able to deliver the information as well as he does. He has a really good charisma. Okay, Bashal. Lidiaste alguna vez con imposter syndrome? If I had to deal with imposter syndrome ever, oh my God, kind of every minute of the day. I feel and I felt many times the imposter syndrome, and there are moments when I feel it really strong, some moments when I know what to do about it. But yes, imposter syndrome is a real thing, and it happens to a lot of people, but happens to the best of us, and it happens to everybody. I believe the majority of no, maybe not everybody, because there are people that have the opposite. I don't remember what the opposite called. Imposter syndrome. syndrome. Yeah, it's what's it called? Dunning-Kruger effect is the opposite, where people actually don't know enough, but they think they know a lot. So to answer your question, yes, I deal a lot with imposter syndrome, and a lot of times at work, I'll do a project really well, and I'll get my managers or the directors and so on will praise me for the result, and then I will say, "Oh, it wasn't me," or "It was that and that," and I try to learn to kind of take credit when it's due, and that's not the only time when imposter syndrome is showing up, but it's a real thing, and you just have to acknowledge it and kind of have a strategy to work with it. Здесь copies. Я учу русский, так что надеюсь, что когда-нибудь будем говорить свободно, как и вы. Большое спасибо. Adis Kopis says that he's learning Russian and he's hoping that sometime in the future we'll be able to speak freely. And thank you very much. Adis Kopis, your Russian is really, really good. And now is a good time to learn more, right? It's like with the time where we are in. Come on, camera, focus, what's going on? Now it's a good time to spend time on those long-term goals that we had and never had time for it. So now it's a good time that we are kind of stay at home. You have to work on something. Okay, so Ricky Morty, how much time is given to learn the company's framework? Again, I can speak from my experience. You learn as you go, and it kind of the software that we had. Okay, first, what do you mean by framework? Because the framework that the company we had, actually, there was framework based, so kind of what can you use and stuff like that. But it depends on the company, and nobody expects you to know everything from the beginning. But you're expected to, in a few months, to start to have a general idea. Ricky Morty, how many languages do you speak? I speak, if I don't count the programming languages, I'm dorky, right? I speak Russian, Romanian, Spanish, and English. But I do understand other languages pretty well as well. I understand Italian, Portuguese. I understand Ukrainian. Did I mention that? Yeah, I did mention it. Italian, Polish as well. So yeah, those kind of a few languages. The reason is that don't think them crazy or something crazy about it. It's just I wanted to be a translator. That's why I know a few languages. Okay. Is this any fun for you? I'm having a good time. So hopefully you are having a good time too. What time is it where you are guys located? Guys and girls? No, I don't really have. I need to be clear. I used to have a really good memory. My memory is not the same as it used to be, but I believe it's more. I grew up with two languages. Like since I was a child, I knew Romanian and Russian, and then I was really, really passionate about learning Spanish. So I spent like 12 years learning Spanish. So nothing out of ordinary there. Then we moved to United States, and when you live in a community, you want it or not, you learn that language. So here's the fourth language. So it's pretty simple. I didn't do anything out of ordinary. It's pretty simple. It just happened. And the other languages I know because I took a few classes to learn them. So I learned a little bit of Italian, Portuguese. I watched a few TV shows. I listened to a few books in Portuguese and so on. So that's how I picked up the languages. And it might seem weird to know that number of languages, but the like first language you learn is pretty kind of, you're a child, you learn it pretty easy. The next language you learn, it's maybe a little bit challenging because you have to adjust to the differences. But the third language that you're learning is pretty simple. The fourth, it's even simpler, and so on. So the next language, you kind of have already kind of a way to memorize them. And that's same true for programming, I would say. The very first language you're learning is probably is the hardest to learn. The next one also, it's kind of hard to learn because you have to, in your mind, you have to kind of encapsulate things and abstract things depending on the programming language you're learning. But as soon as you know two programming languages, the third and the fourth and the fifth and whatever other programming language you want to learn will be the same. But that's how I see it. So we'll see if that's true. Okay, looks like my camera is kind of going crazy. Have you taken any IT tests? No, never. I never ever took any IT tests, and that's weird or not, but since I was a child, I always felt that I'm not smart enough or anything like that. So that's one of the reasons I didn't take an IQ test, because I thought I was not smart enough. But the reality is that I had a fixed mindset. And now I'm working on that, and I'm more, let's say, open-minded, and I'm trying to be more growth mindset right now. And I realize that there are so many things that I want to know, but it's okay that I don't know them yet. And once I have a chance to explore that, I will know that if I put my mind to it. So hopefully that makes sense. And by the way, I don't know if you know or not, but there's like one of my videos on the bookshelf tour that I've done. At the end of the video, there is like a giveaway on the book that I'll be announcing probably in a week or two. So if you want to enter that giveaway, and you haven't done it yet, I strongly encourage you to do that. And you probably have a week until I select somebody who wins the book. It's basically a clean code book that any software developer should read it. I definitely recommend it. It's kind of the Bible of software engineers. So yeah, feel free to do that. While we are, like, let's say we'll probably chat for another 10-15 minutes, what are your favorite technical YouTube channels out there related to software engineering? Bashal, me tengo que ir. Un placer volver a platicar contigo y agradecido que nos compartes tu experiencia. Hasta la próxima. Hasta luego, Bashal. Thank you. Gracias por estar aquí. Fue un placer hablar también. Bashal has to go, and he's saying that it was very nice to talk again with me, and he's really he's appreciating the fact that I'm sharing my experience. And until next time. Ricky Morty, it will be really fun to do it live. You mean to pick the giveaway, like the winner for the giveaway, to do it live? Is that what you're asking? Oh, Morty test, live IQ test. Oh my god, I don't think I can do it. As I said, I didn't do the test because I think I'm not smart enough, and it will be kind of weird to do it during a live, but I could probably try it. And disclaimer, I'm horrible at tests. My brain just freezes up, is not working well. I'm not doing well in interviews. I have so many I'm really fortunate to be in this position, and I'm really happy. But at the same time, I'm horrified and scared of interviews. So I have a lot of interview requests, and I practically always turn them down because of the fear of interviewing. But that's something that I didn't plan to share, but well, I shared it. So yeah, I'm working on it. That's something that I'm working on, and I realized that if I don't work on that, that will be kind of my limitation. So, eSport Gamers Mexico, how is your bootcamp going? Oh my God. There are moments when my head is on fire, and there are moments when it's pretty cool and chill and interesting. I really enjoy the cohort. I enjoy the projects. This week, the materials that we had, it's crazy. We learned so much. This week, we learned graphs. We learned binary hips. We learned networking. We learned TCP/IP. We learned OCI, and then we learned AJAX and so many other things I don't remember right now. But there is so much, like the networking things, like a lot of great information. And I remember that practically I learned that networking stuff, not exactly the same, but the majority of it, the concepts, like the history of internet and all that stuff. I learned that at university, and probably the class was 6 months long, and we tried to learn everything in one day or something like that. And it's really a lot of information. It's really intense. A lot. The projects are amazing. I actually today I did a cat's Instagram where you get cats pictures, and you like it, like you give the hearts there and stuff like that. You leave comments. So yeah, I kind of did the cat's Instagram. It was a fun project. Okay, so nobody's sharing their favorite YouTube channel, technical YouTube channel. Is that you don't have a favorite one? And also, the channel is growing. We are soon going to hit the 1K mark. That's kind of a huge milestone, and I'm really happy about it. I'm really thankful for all of your support. It's so great to chat with you, and it's so great to talk about something that you're passionate about. So I appreciate your time and energy spent with me with the channel. If I have any, okay, Ricky Morty, do you have any personal project like AI, simulation, and so on? I have the interest for those, but I have no actual projects. The projects that I want to do, I want to dabble more on doing with, what is it? My brain is not working after a week of intensive learning. I want to do Raspberry Pi, a lot of stuff. They are small things, but something that will be fun for me. I want to do a magic mirror, and I don't want to use any existing platforms or anything like that. I want to do everything from scratch. I mentioned this already. I want to do a security system also with Raspberry Pi or whatever other things. And actually, once I'm done with the bootcamp takes a lot of my time. It's probably taking 60, 70 hours of my week. So once I'm done with the bootcamp, Shah and I probably will do a collaboration on some IoT or projects or Raspberry Pi or maybe other hardware that he will recommend. Actually, something like if you're interested, we will do that probably in September. Esports Gamers Mexico, have you worked on Linux networking? Not until bootcamp. The first time I'm working on Linux is with the bootcamp. That's I had to install it on my computer And that's when I started to use Linux. And that's kind of Linux for me was new. And what I can tell you that Linux has trust issues. That's what I can tell you. It has trust issues. Funny thing about not networking, but funny thing that happened this week. Every Monday, we are at the bootcamp. We are assessed on the prior week material that we learned, and we have tests, unit tests or specs, right? So you have the test, and you have certain projects that you have to accomplish, and also you have theory, right? You have to do a quiz. And on the practical problem this Monday, when it was the assessment, I get the project, and the first thing what you do, you get the GitHub repository, clone it to your workstation, and then you do cd into your directory, you do npm install, and then you do npm test to run the test. And I do that, and everything is passing. And I didn't really implement any of the features, and the tests are passing. And I was like, what's going on? Like, why the tests are passing? And I called the TA and like, here, look, I didn't do any changes, and the test is passing. I did my changes, and the test is passing anyways. I'm not really sure if my code is actually working, because the testing are passing without any changes of mine. So he runs the test on his machine. It's exactly the same GitHub repository, everything the same. It's failing on his machine, but it's passing on my machine. And it's failing for other students as well, but it's passing for me. So it was something that, what was it? Oh, yes, it was something that we had to do with memoization. And basically, we were learning recursions. Was it? No, it was a binary tree algorithm that we had to solve, but we also had to do, oh, no, it was Fibonacci, but not Fibonacci, but Fibonacci implementation using recursion and using memoization. And if you are doing just recursion with small numbers, it takes a while, but with large numbers, it takes really, really long time. And you use memoization to make it more performant, to make it faster. And I didn't have to use memoization, and the tests were passing anyways. And long story short, it passed because my computer is really performant, and it was running, like the test would have failed if the time to run the test would have taken longer than 2.5 milliseconds. And on my machine, it was taking about 2 milliseconds, and for everybody else, it was taking about 7 to 8 milliseconds to run the test. So because my computer is so performant, my tests were passing, but even when they were not supposed to pass. Okay, Lena, your my channel. Well, thank you. Forest and Programming with Marsh. I don't think I saw his channel, so I'll check him out. Or some of my favorite. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. He's from Mexico. I like Hacks 5. It's a really nice channel. I have to check that out. I'm looking always for new channels. I like Let's Build That App. It's a really cool channel for programming. Haven't heard of any of those except for Forest Night. So I'll check them out. So none of you mentioned Mayuko. Mayuko, she's really good. I like her. I like, who else do I like? I like, my memory is drawing a blank right now. Sometimes I like Clement Mihailescu. Sometimes he has good things there. But yeah, that's kind of it. So I think we had a nice long chat, an hour and a half. So hopefully you had a good time. I definitely had a fun time, so we can try that again. So I'm just curious, what is the best time for a stream? So feel free to drop them in the comments. And next time when I am scheduling or planning a stream, I'll pick up a time that works for everybody. So make sure to leave that in the comments. Thank you, and see you next time. I appreciate you all. Upcoming technology. Hack 5 is very nice channel, but not better than channel hosting developer. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I don't think we can be compared. Everybody has their unique way of doing things. So, and I'm still learning. So I appreciate your patience and your support and your feedback and everything. Thank you. Professor Brian, he's so cool. Let's build that app. Okay. GM. Oh no, I missed it. Well, the good thing, I definitely had fun. It was a nice chat. So um, if you want, you can rewatch it. But since I didn't leave yet, if you have any questions, you can really quickly ask it if you want. And while you are asking the question, I will check those channels that you mentioned. Hack 5. 5. Okay, 89. Okay, sounds good. Until next time. So if you want to suggest something for the next video, feel free to do that. Also, feel free to suggest the best time for a stream that we can do next time. That also something that will be beneficial for us to kind of come up with the time that is best for everybody. And yeah, thank you. See you next time, and happy coding.